I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. These are my experiences in SEO, both as an SEO and as an SEO tester. It isn't me telling you what someone else says about SEO. I practice firsthand experience to understand Google, so I watch their feet, and I do this through testing. So if you're an independent or agency SEO, I get you. And business owners or stakeholders who struggle to keep up on the SEO front but don't want to show it. For many years, I was a local business owner, and I understand your frustration of feeling like you should be in charge, but you can't really when it comes to SEO. Thank you also to Confessions testing and research sponsor, the dental marketing guy, Justin Morgan. He owns and manages a marketing analyst and service firm for dentists. Let's get started. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 47, Note to Self. It's kind of an effort and futility to start indexation tests just ahead of Thanksgiving week. However, it looks like Google might be back in the crawling business, so I guess I can be patient. Hello, this is not Friday but Saturday, before I had a moment to myself and could gather my thoughts and come up with a couple of chats for today after all the turkey on Thursday. First of all, is this the first time in the last few years that Google didn't send the SEO community into a tailspin with a Thanksgiving update? Honestly, I think we're all a little traumatized by the past few years being on edge about it. It's almost like we have SEO flinchies that only make sense to people who are not only children, only child, I guess. All right, so do I think that Google did not do something? Of course they did. And the scary part is, if they were able to diversify what they're doing, like across various pages, and to do it without hammering on one particular niche or keyword, but let's say across the board, just a little here and there, there's no way that people would notice it enough to freak out. Well, in part, my just saying that makes me feel a little bit like that kid in the movie Mercury Rising, the one that cracks the government's unbreakable code and they send rogue federal agents to kill him. Now, I just don't know who Bruce Willis is in that analogy. So I'm going to remind you that no matter how I die, it was murder. Just joking. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. So maybe they were testing to see if they didn't do anything that got them negative press, that maybe businesses are sufficiently trained after the last few years to put a budget in for paid ads in the sales season. Somehow that the impending shadow of a threat accomplishes the same goal. So what does it mean if Google didn't do anything this holiday season? And I say that fully understanding that we still have a ways to go until we're on the other side of Christmas. Anything could happen, people. My only concern is if it's in the, let's say, you've heard me talk several times about the serving mechanisms. How would we know that Google wasn't serving our content unless we were tracking each individual keyword on each page? Because if you're just looking at the composite of impressions, clicks, and average ranking position in Search Console, it would not be hard to miss the tree for the forest in that case. Regardless, we may or may not be in for an update. So that's the end of the scary part of the episode. What is happening, you ask, on the indexation for the week of Thanksgiving? And I'm really making a concerted effort to run 5 tests every week until the end of the year, which means I am a barrel of laughs every Sunday in my house. My family's really tired of me saying, "Quick, give me a topic. Name a thing. What have you read lately?" I'm wanting to create AI content that has plenty of entities in LSI so that it's a fuller picture. And I do uniqueify the content, and I'll pop in some punctuation every now and then. But there are just so many times one can pull a topic or a niche out of thin air. After almost a year and a half, I think I can vouch for that. So the big thing I noticed this week was 2 Search Console coverage updates back to back. And there's probably not more than 24 hours in between them. There's a lot of time when things look like what happens in a regular office. For instance, it's almost like you can see it, somebody saying, "Hey, I need to get this off my desk before I head out for a few days on the holiday." I mean, I guess you could say, even at Google, they put their pants on one leg at a time. Or do they? And then the other weird thing that I noticed this week was one of the two active mobile Google bots. I've said before, they each have a different version of the Chrome browser. So that's the ones that make pictures of our content. But the one with the 106 build that ends in 119, they all look like a nuclear launch code. So that's why I don't want to say this all out loud, all those numbers. But it's the one that I refer to as Googlebot 17. 17 because it was the 17th mobile bot I've identified since diving into the server logs this year. And that little bugger has been in service almost 40 days. And these bots with Chrome builds really don't ever last that long. They use them and throw them off. So why talk about that? Well, the way I've been able to know when an update ends is when they introduce a new mobile bot. So usually it comes in approximately 48 hours or so, Google fesses up and says whatever they were doing is over. That's why when people talk about an update in this November, that lasted over a couple of days, I'm not inclined to view as what happened to them as an update. And here's what I was talking about before. I might be going back into the scary part. What if the criteria that Google has for assigning a keyword to a piece of content, what if it shifts? What if there's volatility in that? The data already shows me that indexing in its truest definition is not the same as being findable. And I know there's an ongoing fight on SEO Fight Club, and honestly, in my opinion, it's over. There is no way, based on the data that we can see in our own search console, indexed for our content is not the same as findable by its keywords. And the findable part is what intrigues me now. We kind of know that they compare our content to documents they have in their databases. And then they have documents already in the index. And so they'll add our new content to what they have. So to sort them, they would kind of have to have keywords assigned, right? Because our one page of content might make a cluster of keywords that it's ranking for. And it's not a one-to-one. You don't have just usually one keyword to one page. There are many related keywords. If you've written a page of content about something with a degree of knowledge, at least you're using everything that you can. So if crawl and index get you in the index on their side, and let's say the keyword would have to be assigned before it went through whatever is the serving function of indexing. So, questions I have are, well, what if they don't want to update a set of results? What if they only want to manage 100 results for each keyword? They used to show 1,000 in the results, and now you're lucky if you get 20 pages of results for any particular search term. So they do have it in their patents, right? That delayed ranking is part of the algorithm, again, to hide that direct line from cause to effect. We know they have also added in some volatility to the search results. So in my opinion, they could, again, insert some white noise into the data in terms of assigning keywords. Maybe they don't assign so many. I don't know. But you can see why I'm so fun at normal people parties, right? Okay, so the other thing I wanted to chat about was I had an interesting business discussion this week, and I guess this is the part for the non-SEOs, the business owners, the ones that feel like it's their business to know what the SEO team is doing, what it's supposed to be doing without knowing what the SEO team is really doing, right? That's a challenge. And I know I've gone on record saying that business owners kind of need to have a buyer's SEO agent, the way that real estate has a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. They need someone who is tasked with their best interest, especially when it's an agency that's trying to get their business and to get them to sign an SEO contract. So technically, they kind of have a conflict of interest because at no time can the person selling SEO only think about the buyer. I mean, if they're trying to be a good steward of their agency, they kind of have to make sure that that client is good for their agency. But once enough criteria is met, they need to get they need to close. Now, the topic came up about doing reviews of SEO work, that a company might want to do that. And it's not really a sign of distrust of their SEO agency, but it's their way to get to know, is this SEO good? Now, it's certainly understandable that such bean counters would want to know they were paying for beans and getting good value out of those beans. In my thinking, I do feel like my strategy and method of implementing such things is proprietary information, but I'm willing to keep an open mind and hear it out. And so as I was thinking about this, I tried to imagine the things that could be done that would harm a site, would harm a brand, that would harm a business. And just to think back over all the penalty Google updates, you can kind of see a roadmap of discovery that could be made to check for those egregious things that are, you just want to make sure that they're not being implemented onto a business's domain. And there's no real better example than what happened to JCPenney and the little black dress. Remember that? The agency SEO that was hired by JCPenney's was outsourcing their backlink building, and by golly, it was working like a son of a gun. And the reason we know about this is because it was all reported in the New York Times around February 2011. It looked like searches for dresses, for things like skinny jeans, comfort sets, furniture, to tablecloths, bedding, and area rugs, and even very hyper-specific terms like grommet top curtains. For months, JCPenney's was either at the #1 spot or very close to it. It was starting to get incredibly obvious. For instance, they were even outranking Samsonite Luggage's website for Samsonite luggage. And this happened most of the year and even through the holidays. So you can just go ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. So the Times went to someone who was an expert in search, so they said, and to take a look at this and figure out why JCPenney's was the answer to all things retail. Now, we all know what it was, but imagine a mainstream writer hearing about things like, and I'm going to quote him, layer upon layer of intrigue, a sprawling subterranean world of black hat optimization, the dark art of raising the profiles of a website with methods Google considers tantamount to cheating, unquote. So let's just call them backlinks. Basically, this expert said someone paid to have thousands of links placed on hundreds of sites scattered around the web, and all of them led directly to JCPenney. And so, of course, the big question was, who would do that? Now, the spokesperson for JCPenney said, and I'm going to quote them, they did not authorize and they were not involved with or aware of the posting of the links that you sent to us. This is the New York Times sending them a sort of like, hey, this is what we discovered. What do you have to say about it? And so they were saying it's against our natural search policies, unquote. And from there, they also reached out to Google. So basically, Google was tipped off by the New York Times. And they did an interview with Matt Cutts. And Google, of course, after that interview, confirmed and found the unnatural link pattern. And as they say, they punished JCPenney's by basically removing them from the search results. We call that de-indexing. Now, JCPenney's fired its SEO agency, and it turns out, of course, there was some obvious buying of links and paying websites to place those links that went right back to JCPenney's. And eventually, I think a lot of finger pointing, and they said it was from an outsourcer they used. Now, that's bad. Bad because when you're working with a brand, you don't want that brand to be damaged in the search results like they were, much less the newspaper. And don't forget stockholders and stock price. And, JCPenney's really kind of like abandoning the catalog because it was dying and investing a lot in their website. There was a lot of pressure from their stockholders to make a lot of money, to pay back for all the investment they put into the web. So to exploit an aspect of SEO that is so far to the extreme, that could have been part of a review process from JCPenney to their outside agency. Have a third party basically kind of do exactly what the New York Times did. That kind of review, I think, is healthy and it's welcome. But if you're doing reviews like you're grading math papers, all I want to say is good luck. Now, SEO, it does involve math, but it is not like math in the way that the only answer for 4 plus 4 is 8. If you're optimizing a page, once you reach a certain level of proficiency, it's more like art. The cleverness of the mind, the levers that one can see to pull. It is almost like trying to figure out who's the better violinist, Itzhak Perlman or Jascha Heifetz. It's a fool's errand. These things and this type of thinking, I think, are really cautioning people against those that, they get a job or a position and they get comfortable. And, usually if they're in finance, they start embezzling the company. But typically, most of the time, they just kind of lose their edge. They don't stay up on the latest developments of their production. Now, rather for SEO, I'd ask, where do you get your SEO strategy from? Are you doing peer-reviewed work in other things that you're working on? Now, my dad was a car mechanic in his second career. He knew how to fix cars and was particularly skilled with the ones that others couldn't repair. So I grew up with a lot of car repair stories. And one day he told me that while Formula One cars are really fast and they have great engines, they are terrible for driving around town. Like going to the grocery store and using it like we use our cars is how to make those cars not run. And this kind of blew my mind. So, and we're bringing it back to SEO, enterprise websites and their SEO teams, they have such high authority sites. They can launch a page and suddenly it ranks. They don't do what you and I do or what those we work for need us to do. In fact, if you took somebody out of those SEO departments and you gave them a local plumber site, the odds are they would be lost. They never really have to fight for rankings against the sites like we work with day in and day out. And if you're pulling your SEO talent from an organization like that, on paper, I bet it looks good, but in practice, you are in for it. And what I'm trying to say is when you get to a certain level of expertise in SEO, it's not the strategy or the implementation that you need to look for. My experience has always been business owners typically are wanting white hat SEO and implementing it with black hat. They want the results of the black hat, but they want you to do it the white hat way. And that black hat part is usually, it usually relates to the time frame. It takes a while to grow an entity and a brand if you're starting from scratch. So my recommendation would be to get someone to do a backlink review. But Carolyn, how do we know if the SEO is good? Well, it is easy. Look at your results before you had that team put together. And then after you've had that team for about 6 months, compare those same results. This is around the 6-month mark. You should see a difference. That should tell you. You want to know how things were before you had that agency and how things were at the 6-month mark. And these are the things you should look for. Are you ranking for more keywords than you were back then? Are the keywords you're ranking for, are they going up in the rankings? You should have more impressions. You should have more traffic, more opportunities to make a sale. What more could be important in terms of your organic SEO? Let's see. Oh, wait, there are 5 broken links on your site. There probably has 1 million properly working links. Again, I'm going to ask you, what is more important? How that question is answered for SEO is going to be very telling. And as I say all this, I think we as SEOs should consider these types of questions so that when we are in those rooms and we are essentially interviewing stakeholders, we need to ask them these questions before we let them sign our proposals. That's that. All right, I'll get down off my soapbox. Well, I hope this has been long enough for you, Dan. Dan's a listener who asked me if I could go 3 more minutes longer than a normal length because it was his commute to the office. Never let it be said that I ignore my listeners. P.S. Since I started recording this, Google has done another Search Console page update today. So they are back in the office, people. Look lively. Well, that's going to do it for today. Remember to catch the daily crawl or no crawl reports. You can find them on YouTube. You can search for crawl or no crawl and you'll see it, or I'll put a link in the description. In January, I've got the date set for the Forensic SEO Training course. If you're interested, check out forensicseotraining.com and to learn more about it and to get on the early bird notification if you're interested. Thank you for being a listener. Thank you to all the sponsors of Confessions that help support this work for themselves and others. If you'd like to support this podcast and SEO research too, there's a link in the description. Please subscribe to Confessions. It's been my pleasure to be with you. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the SERPs.